I'm very interested in the patterns within nature and also textures and forms, and looking at them in a kind of experiential way. So maybe it's about how you feel about a texture, or how you might experience the rhythm of a pattern, and how that might be different to the way we often look at things, and how that might be, I don't know if it's closer to the way animals see, but I'm trying to connect with other ways of seeing, I suppose, maybe non-human ways of seeing. So I've got a board that I lie underneath. The lit taper creates the marks on the paper. So there's kind of varying distance between the taper and the paper, which will affect the kind of mark that comes off. And other things might affect the mark as well, like if there's a wind, so you'll get different kind of patterns created by the atmosphere really as well. So it's not necessarily something I have that much control over. It's a kind of negotiation with the smoke itself. It's quite a meditative process, almost without intentionally being so, because you have to be very present when you're working with fire, and so I think also being in a different kind of drawing position changes your sense of thinking as well, because actually lying down, I think you think slightly, you're in a more relaxed mode of being, and I think then you've got this fire to focus on really. So you almost can't get too many other thoughts coming into your head, other than just facilitating things not catching fire. I suppose I've had a long-standing interest in kind of folk traditions and superstitions. I don't really approach my work in a very conceptual way, but I feel that they belong to this folk tradition of symbolism and iconic imagery that has a protective element. So I was very intrigued to find out when someone came to an exhibition about this tradition of marks made with smoke in old houses called apotropaic marks, and they've been found in a lot of buildings, and they are marks to ward off evil made with smoke. We've got this tradition of projecting onto animals what we fear, what we believe in, and I think I'm very interested in how what looking at animals tells us about ourselves really, and them as mirrors. There are animals we are uncomfortable with because we can't control them, or we don't understand them, or we haven't been able to domesticate them or employ them, and they retain their sense of power, and we're fascinated by that as well. So I think some of the animals I'm really interested in are those animals that make us feel things that we don't feel comfortable with. Moths. People love butterflies, but moths, they tend to be much more uncomfortable around. Prior to the drawing, I'll get interested in writing or poetry or even music or things I've seen. So that tends to happen before I make the work, I think. There's a kind of sense of connection with a particular animal. I think the reason I make art or make images is because it's a way of communicating with other people, not necessarily in the way I would verbally, and to communicate about maybe sensory information as well. So it's a different way of communicating for me than verbally. And I'm very interested to find out how people respond to that as well. So it feels very much like a two-way process, making work, that I put out an image, and people experience that, and then they often come back with stories or responses which are always really interesting to me.